The Chinese Civil War. The Chinese Civil War, fought between the Communists and the Nationalists, was to restore control over China. It was split into two parts, starting in 1927, separated by the Sino-Japanese War in 1937, and started again in 1946, after the war with Japan was over. The Chinese Civil War was caused by many factors. For example, peasants under the rule of warlords struggled with money, lived a hard life, and paid lots of taxes. Peasants struggled with unemployment and debt due to cheap Western technology. The Communist and Nationalist Party originally united together to unite China against warlords. However, rivalry grew between the two parties. A wave of anti-Western feeling was widespread and popular, but without modern weaponry, any anti-foreign revolt was futile. There was also a large wealth gap between the affluent citizens and the peasants, creating a feeling of discontent amongst the lower class.
The Chinese Civil War starts again in 1945 after Japan surrenders to the United States in World War II. Although the Communist and Nationalist parties originally united together to go against Japan, after the Japanese leave China, both sides are fighting again in an all-out civil war for control of China.
American intervention. As a result of the conflict, Truman requested George Marshall to go to China to negotiate an agreement between the two conflicting parties. Called the Marshall Mission, Marshall reached agreements to reform the government and create a national assembly for the two parties. However, the two parties had no intent on actually coming to a truce, and fighting in Manchuria once again broke out after their armies had time to recover during the negotiations. Later, Marshall, along with U.S. Ambassador John Stuart, attempted to form a coalition government in China. However, this once again failed miserably. A frustrated Marshall eventually left China, condemning both parties to be far too extreme. The U.S. would later follow up by ending their task as a mediator in the country almost entirely, however would still support the Nationalist Party financially throughout the conflict.
At first, the Nationalist Party was at an advantage because they had 4 million troops and better equipment, while the Communist Party only had 1 million troops. However, the Soviet Union provided military and financial aid to the Communist Party. It let them have the weapons left over by Japanese at Manchuria. The Communist Party had better military organization, higher morale, and more support from Chinese rural citizens, so they slowly began to dominate the Nationalist Party. The Communist Party took control of Manchuria, Shanxi, Shandong, Hebei, and many more. Although in 1946, the Communist Party only controlled 1/10 of China, however, in 1948, they controlled 1/3 of China.
Many factors contributed to the gradual decline of the National Party. Public morale of the Nationalists were low. The Communists continuously cut off the resources and communication in the war zones, intensifying financial crisis. Nationalist government failed to keep inflation in check, contributing to soaring living costs. Previously, the Nationalists financed the war by simply printing more money, thereby destroying the value of their currency. In 1946, there were 9 trillion yuan in circulation, but by August 1948, 700 trillion yuan were in circulation. The citizens saw their savings drain away as the government seemed unable to help. Desperate to curb a possible disaster, the Nationalist government introduced rigid price-wage controls and held harsh criminal penalties for economic crimes. The Nationalist government was also very corrupt, and that upset the majority of the people, as those with close ties to the Nationalist government were able to avoid prosecution for even the most blatant violations of the law.
In 1949, Mao claimed that he was willing to negotiate with the opposing Nationalist Party, resulting in an April peace conference between Mao and the current nationalist leader at the time, Li Zongren, as Jiang Jieshi had resigned. The delegates exchanged views informally over 3 fundamental communist demands. 1. Communist armies would cross the Changjiang River to reorganize nationalist troops. 2. A government with Mao as chairman and Li as one of the vice chairmen would be established. 3. The Chiang, Sung, and Qin families would be punished. The Nationalist Party, however, refused these terms, and the Communist Party quickly advanced on the Nationalists. On October 1st, 1949, Mao proclaimed the establishment of the People's Republic of China. Eventually, Communist forces would force the Nationalists to retreat all the way to Taiwan, where they would establish their own government there.
Results of the Chinese Civil War. After the conflict ended, the communists emerged victorious with control over the entire nation. Mao's communist government regime would go on to reign for years later. Short-term results were the death of millions of civilians and soldiers in the nation. In addition, relationships between both China and the USSR were strengthened. USSR provided both military aid and training, and the two nations emerged with good relations. For America, communist control in China was a wake-up call. Truman and his administration realized that they had to intervene in Asia for future situations. This would play a vital factor later on in conflicts such as the Korean War.
We didn't want to be too involved in the fighting between the two parties, so we decided to send in Ambassador Hurley and George Marshall to negotiate between the two. Obviously, it didn't work out so well. The two parties honestly didn't want peace, and to be frank, the peace talks were a complete failure. Well, obviously, I was and am still strongly against the communist cause. We obviously wanted nationalists to have an advantage in our proposed coalition government, so we may have communicated far less with the communists. Even later on, we've sent Zhang Jieshi $400 million in aid to help deal with the communist threat. Honestly, I've lost most of my faith in Zhang Jieshi and the nationalists. They have too many internal problems such as corruption, and further aid won't make much of a difference. Although the nationalists have requested further aid, I am unwilling to provide further assistance to them. They're on their own against the communists.
我们战争的目标很简单，统治共产主义政权下的所有中国。目前该国薄弱而分裂，每个人无论哪一方首要任务都是统一，同时驱逐潜伏在国内的外国势力。民族主义者是愚蠢的，虽然我承认我在我年轻的愚蠢时代，我曾经是民族主义者。然而，当我发现马克思主义亚麻之时，我知道我在这个世界上的目的。这个国家的农民在战争中起着至关重要的作用。中国属于一级的农民的休眠力量是我军队的基础。他们是贫穷而空白的人，需要知道，力量和暴力已经灌输在基中，所需要的只是一种适当的无常。阶级友谊使他们的力量足以进行革命。人们可能会称我为机会主义者。
虽然我们以前在第一个统一战线中曾是和共产党结盟，以结束在中国的军阀主义，我发现中国共产党变得太厉害了，我怕中国共产党在威胁国民党，所以我开始杀他们，这样我可以保护我的国家。
In summary, started back in the 1920s, but temporarily unified for the Sino-Japanese War, however fought again afterwards, was a conflict between communist and nationalist parties over reunification and control of China. U.S. attempted negotiations between the two, but ultimately failed. U.S. backed the nationalists, while the USSR backed Mao and the communists. Communists were better trained and better supplied from the USSR, and quickly won city after city against nationalists despite initial disadvantage in numbers and supplies. After failed final negotiations, communists eventually forced nationalists to flee to Taiwan. Communist rule was established under Mao's as the People's Republic of China, while nationalists established the Republic of China at Taiwan. Americans realized they needed to intervene in future Asian conflict in order to prevent further spread of communism.